All right, today we're going to do something a little different. We are diving deep into a fascinating scientific paper that uncovers the secrets hidden inside a single drop of shark blood. And as you'll see, what's inside has huge implications for the survival of a really unique and vulnerable species.
So, why are we even looking at this? Why is this research so urgent? Well, this number right here, it says it all. In just 1 decade, the commercial catch rate for wobbegong sharks dropped by half, a full 50%. That is a staggering decline. And it's a huge red flag that tells us this animal is in serious trouble. It puts this incredible pressure on scientists to figure them out before it's too late.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to properly meet the wobbegong. Then we'll get into the mystery surrounding why this species is so vulnerable. From there, we'll go under the microscope, literally, to see what their blood can tell us. We'll even tackle a weird little scientific naming puzzle. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see why this kind of research is so absolutely critical.
Okay, first things first, let's meet the star of our show, the wobbegong. Now, these are big, bottom-dwelling sharks. They're often called carpet sharks because, look at them. They have this incredible camouflage that lets them blend right into the seafloor. You can find them hanging out in the coastal waters of New South Wales, Australia.
Now, to give you some context, wobbegongs are in the same big family as the super chill nurse shark and the gigantic whale shark, so they've got some famous cousins. And it's not just one type of wobbegong. There's a whole family of them, with most species living around Australia. But check out that third point, because it's a big deal. They are really hard to tell apart. That makes tracking and protecting them incredibly tricky, especially when you realize they've been commercially fished for a long, long time. And that whole misidentification thing, it feeds right into this much bigger problem. It's a mystery, really. We know they're commercially important, we know they're officially listed as vulnerable, but the truth is, we know surprisingly little about them. How are you supposed to protect an animal you barely understand?
This quote from the paper itself just hits the nail on the head. When scientists, who are usually very careful with their words, say very little is known, that's a problem. That means we're missing the most basic, fundamental information we need to create a good conservation plan. You can't save what you don't understand. And that's why this study is so important. It's like the first major piece of detective work. So where do you even start when you know almost nothing? You gotta start with the absolute basics. And one of the first steps to understanding an animal's health is figuring out what its blood is supposed to look like. You need a baseline, and that's exactly what this study did for the very first time with wild-caught wobbegongs. All right, let's get into it. The most common cell you're going to find in anyone's blood, shark or human, is the erythrocyte. You can think of them as our red blood cells. Their main gig, transporting oxygen all through the body, basically keeping the lights on. But right away, this is where their blood starts to look really different from ours. Wobbegong erythrocytes, they're oval, and here's the kicker. They have a nucleus. Our mature red blood cells actually get rid of their nucleus. It's a huge difference. The researchers also found something else really wild. Inside some of these cells, they found what looked like tiny parasites, literally living inside the blood cells. It's a tiny clue into the kind of health challenges these animals face out in the wild. Okay, next up, thrombocytes. Now, in sharks, these cells are serious multitaskers. They're not just there to help clot blood and stop bleeding, they also play a really important role in the immune system. They're true workhorses. And get this, they don't just come in one shape. The scientists found them looking round, oval, even stretched out like a spindle. And some of the small, round ones looked so much like a different immune cell, a lymphocyte, that it was actually hard to tell them apart. It just goes to show how tricky this kind of work can be. And speaking of lymphocytes, here they are. You can think of these as the special forces of the immune system. They're the cells that are responsible for recognizing and going after specific threats, like viruses and bacteria. They are absolutely central to immunity. The wobbegong's lymphocytes had a pretty distinct look, mostly just a big, dark nucleus. But here's where it gets really interesting. The researchers noted that their numbers seemed extremely high. Now, in mammals, a big spike in lymphocytes can be a sign of major stress. So the theory is that this might be a direct physical reaction to the intense stress of being caught. Now we get to a whole category of immune cells called granulocytes. They get their name from all these tiny little granules you can see inside them, floating in the cytoplasm. That's kind of the jelly that fills up the cell. And those granules are packed with chemicals for fighting off infections. Scientists tell them apart by how those granules react to different lab stains.
So in the wobbegong blood, they found three main types. There were neutrophils, which look pretty similar to ours, then eosinophils, which were easy to spot with their bright pink granules. And then there were these really cool-looking cells called granuloblasts. They were big and packed with these large pink rod-shaped granules. But just as important is what they didn't find, basophils. It's a type of granulocyte that just seems to be missing in most fish.
And this is where our story takes a fun little turn. You'd think identifying a cell would be pretty straightforward, right? You look in the microscope, you see what it is. But in fish biology, it turns out, it's a total puzzle. Different scientists looking at the exact same cell in different sharks over the years have given it different names. This slide just captures the chaos perfectly. Remember that granuloblast with the big pink rods we just saw? Okay, so this study calls it a granuloblast. But go back to 1966 and a different paper calls it a heterophyll. Fast forward to 87 and it's an eosinophilic granulocyte. And then in 2004, it was described as an immature granulocyte. It's the same cell with 4 different names. It's wild. And the authors of our paper basically come right out and say it. This isn't just a small disagreement. The naming system is inconsistent, and it has led to genuine confusion in the field. It makes it super hard for scientists to compare their results. It's just a great reminder that science isn't some fixed book of facts. It's an ongoing process of discovery, and sometimes just getting everyone to agree on what to call things is a huge step forward.
So, okay, after all that microscopic detail and scientific naming drama, let's zoom all the way back out. Why does any of this matter? Why does knowing the shape of a shark's blood cell have anything to do with its survival?
Well, for one thing, it shows us just how different their biology is. Just look at this. In our bodies, platelets really have one job: clot blood. That's it. But fish thrombocytes, they're like a Swiss Army knife. They handle clotting and they perform immune functions. It's a huge reminder that we can't just assume fish biology works like ours does. We have to understand them on their own terms.
And really, this is the biggest takeaway of all. This entire study, with all its crazy detail, is about creating a what's normal snapshot. It's a health baseline, because without knowing what a healthy wobbegong's blood is supposed to look like, there's no way for a vet or a conservationist to know when one is sick or stressed, or if an entire population is in danger. This research is ground zero. It is the essential first step for any future health monitoring.
And that leaves us with one last big question. The wobbegong isn't some mysterious creature from the deepest, darkest trenches of the ocean. It lives right off the coast of a major developed country. And yet, until basically now, we didn't even have a basic catalog of its blood cells. And it just makes you wonder, if we're only just now scratching the surface with an animal right in our backyard, what other incredible secrets are waiting for us in the parts of our planet we have barely even begun to explore?